Haute Couture. The term translates to high sewing in French, but it is far more than a description. In France, it is a legally protected designation. To use the words Haute Couture on any product, a fashion house must be certified by the Fédération de la Haute Couture et de la Mode in Paris. The requirements are specific. The house must employ at least 15 full-time artisans in a Parisian atelier. Design made-to-order garments for private clients with multiple fittings and present a collection of at least 25 original designs twice a year during Couture Week in Paris. Only about 15 houses currently hold this designation, including Chanel, Dior, Valentino, Givenchy, Jean-Paul Gaultier, and Schiaparelli. A handful of others are invited as guest members, allowed to show during Couture Week without permanent certification. The system dates back to 1868, when Charles Frederick Worth, an English designer working in Paris, formalized the concept of a designer dictating fashion to clients rather than the other way around. Worth is considered the father of haute couture and was the first designer to sew his own label into garments, treating clothing as a form of authorship. A couture garment is built entirely by hand. A single dress can require 300 or more hours of work across multiple specialized ateliers. Embroidery is handled by one workshop, pleating by another, featherwork by a third. Chanel owns several of these ateliers, collectively known as the Métiers d'Art, including Les Arts for embroidery, Le Marié for feathers and camellias, and Massaro for shoes. The client flies to Paris for a minimum of 3 fittings. The garment is constructed on a mannequin built to the client's exact measurements, including their posture and the way they walk. Materials include hand-dyed silks, gold thread, freshwater pearls, and Swarovski crystals applied one at a time with tweezers. Prices start at approximately $50,000 for a relatively simple piece and routinely exceed $500,000 for heavily embellished gowns. Only about 2,000 people worldwide purchase haute couture in any given year. The collections are not designed to generate profit. They function as the artistic laboratory of a fashion house, establishing the creative vision that filters down into every other product the brand sells, from ready-to-wear clothing to perfume bottles. Couture is the image, everything else is the business. Prêt-à-porter, ready-to-wear in French. These are the collections most people think of when they picture luxury fashion. Garments designed by a creative director, shown on runways at Fashion Week in Paris, Milan, London, and New York, and produced in standard sizes for retail sale. Yves Saint Laurent is widely credited with pioneering luxury prêt-à-porter when he opened his Rive Gauche boutique in 1966, becoming the first major couturier to sell high-end clothing directly off the rack. Before that moment, luxury fashion existed almost exclusively in the made-to-order world. Saint Laurent's move was considered radical and even scandalous within the industry, but it fundamentally changed how fashion reached consumers. Today, prêt-à-porter is where the vast majority of a luxury house's revenue is generated. The garments are designed in-house, often in the same studio that produces the couture collections. But they are manufactured using industrial techniques in controlled factory environments, primarily in France and Italy. Standard patterns and sizing allow a single design to be produced in quantities ranging from dozens to thousands, depending on the brand and the piece. A ready-to-wear dress from Dior or Chanel might cost between $2,000 and $15,000. A coat can reach $30,000 or more. The quality of materials and construction is high, but the garments are not fitted to individual bodies. Prêt-à-porter shows happen 4 times a year: spring, summer, and fall, winter for both menswear and women's wear. In addition, most major houses now produce cruise and pre-fall collections, which fill the retail gaps between main seasons and often account for a significant portion of annual sales because they remain in stores longer. These runway presentations serve a dual function. They are creative statements that establish the aesthetic direction of the season, and they are commercial events that generate orders from buyers representing department stores and boutiques worldwide. But clothing is rarely the profit center. Most luxury houses generate the bulk of their income from leather goods, shoes, and accessories. The runway exists to build desire for the brand. A hand-beaded Couture jacket that costs $100,000 inspires a machine-embroidered, ready-to-wear version at $8,000, which in turn inspires a printed silk blouse at $2,000, which ultimately makes the consumer want the handbag at $3,000 that carries the same logo. The creative DNA flows downward through every price point. Diffusion. The third tier of a luxury house's product architecture. A diffusion line is a separate brand created and owned by a luxury fashion house designed to reach consumers who cannot or will not pay full luxury prices. The products carry the creative spirit of the parent house but are manufactured at lower cost using less expensive materials and more efficient production methods. Prices typically range from 1/5 to 1/3 of the main line. Armani provides the textbook example of this strategy. At the top sits Giorgio Armani Privé, the couture line. Below that is Giorgio Armani, the luxury ready-to-wear collection. Then Emporio Armani targets a younger, more fashion-forward audience at lower prices. And at the base, Armani Exchange operates as a casual lifestyle brand accessible to the mass market. Each line has its own stores, its own campaigns, and its own identity. Other examples include Miu Miu, which is Prada's diffusion brand, and Marc by Marc Jacobs, which ran from 2001 to 2015. Versace operated versus Versace as its diffusion line for decades. The strategic purpose of diffusion is to capture aspirational consumers who engage with the brand at a lower price point and may eventually move upward to the main line. The risk is dilution. If the diffusion line sells too many units in too many locations, the parent brand's perception of exclusivity erodes. Dolce & Gabbana shut down their D&G diffusion line in 2012 after concluding it was confusing consumers. Burberry spent years consolidating its diffusion licenses after discovering that dozens of uncontrolled sub-brands around the world had damaged its luxury positioning. The trend in recent years has been toward fewer diffusion lines, not more. Many houses have concluded that controlling a single, well-positioned brand is more profitable and less risky than managing a pyramid of sub-brands with increasingly blurred distinctions.